Hey everybody, my name is Lucy Price and welcome to Shift Your Story. Today we're going to talk about the difference between processing and dwelling on a situation, a past experience, or on an emotion. I know when we're going through breakups or divorces, separations, or even if there's just been a hard experience that has happened in your relationship or in your life, it can be hard to tell the difference between when you are processing something, when you are working through something, versus when you are starting to dwell on something, when you are starting to ruminate on something in the past, and it's actually holding you back from moving forward. I know in my life that this has been a tricky thing to balance. This has been a tricky thing to really come to terms with in my own life because I am what I would call an external processor. I like talking things out with people. I like getting other people's perspective, people who I trust, but other people's perspective on a situation because I like to know my own blind spots. I like to know if there's something that I'm not seeing, if there's a different angle for me to have on a situation. And I have gotten into a few instances in the past where talking through something with someone or going back to a subject, going back to an experience has actually not benefited me in moving forward from an experience because I wasn't in the processing game anymore. I was actually starting to dwell. I was starting to ruminate on something. I was starting to get caught up in an experience or a situation in the past, and it actually hindered me from moving forward. And this is something that I think a lot of people do struggle with when it comes to breakups, when it comes to having hard, hurtful, painful experiences that has come up in relationships. I think everyone can relate to getting hung up on something, of not being able to let something go easily. And the image that came into my head was family gatherings. Like, I feel like family gatherings and holidays is one of the places where this comes up a lot. And I think I'm thinking about that because we're starting to, at the date of this recording, it's September 25th. And so we're starting to get into the holiday season a little bit. And so I have my mind on a few things around the holidays to make. So also send me your questions if you have any questions about relationships in the holidays. But that image came up for me of, I feel like every family gathering in my family that I've gone to, there's been something from the past that's gotten brought up. There's been something that someone couldn't let go of, and it's gotten brought up in the experience. And that it's just been on my mind, this idea of when are we processing something and when are we ruminating on something? And I think it's something we've all experienced in all of our relationships. I am speaking about it today more in terms of a breakup or a separation, but I think this can really be applied to a variety of experiences, like an experience with a friend. I know there's been a lot of things in my own life where situations have come up with friends where I found something hard to let it go. And I hear this a lot from my clients. It's hard for me to let this go. It's hard for me to let this piece go or move on from this piece of the hurt or the pain or the situation. And so I wanted to talk about how you can actually process something, what processing something, an experience, a hurt actually is, versus when you're dwelling on something. Because when you start dwelling or ruminating on something, it hinders your ability to move on from that experience. And it's not helpful, I find, in terms of healing, to be thinking and sitting with something after a certain point, after a certain amount of processing. So this is where nuance comes in a little bit, but without further ado, I'm going to get into a couple of things here to help you determine when you're actually processing versus when you're ruminating, and when it's time to stop processing something because you're not actually processing it anymore. You're staying stuck there. So processing, I actually wanted to look up the definition of what processing actually meant in terms of the actual meaning of the word. And what came up from the quick Google was processing is a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end. Now, this actually surprised me because I think when a lot of people think about processing, they do think about working through something, but I don't think there's a lot of intention or awareness of the end of that statement to achieve a particular end. I think that oftentimes in our culture, we can think about processing, but it's really just like sitting with the emotions or sitting with the experience, sitting with what happened, as opposed to actually moving through it and actually trying to get somewhere, actually getting to a particular place, a particular end in something. And so that was really interesting to me of how I have thought about processing as opposed to like what the actual definition of the word was. So that made me want to dig a little bit deeper. And so I tried to look up, or I didn't try, I did. I looked up emotional processing in particular, and I found a definition from the National Institute of Health, which is emotional processing is the interrelated processes, including the somatic and mental experiencing of one's activated emotions, verbal or behavioral expression of those emotions, and cognitive reflection on the goals, meanings, and implications of one's experience. Now, I found that interesting because it brought in a little bit more of what I think about when I think about processing, which is working through and experiencing the mental and the somatic or the more body, nervous system related things to the hurt, to the pain, to the experience. But it was also the second part, which is the verbal and the behavioral expression of those emotions. So talking it out with people and allowing your emotions to be seen and witnessed. Then it brought in the end piece, which was the cognitive reflection on the goals or meanings or implications of one's experiences. And that's where I think it's almost like the particular end piece. Packaged a little differently, packaged with some more nuances in there. But that's when I think it's to get to a particular place or to really decide what it means for you or what it means or how it's impacted you and who you are going forward or who you want to be going forward. So all of that was super, super interesting with me. I'm really glad that I looked those things up because it started getting some different wheels turning in my head. All of this is relevant because I think this is actually the framework that I tend to lean towards when it comes to walking people through the processing experience of a painful breakup or hard, painful fight or whatever it happened to be. But this is kind of the step-by-step. And we can use this as a step-by-step of what it means to process and how you can process your emotions. So I kind of broke this down and I repackaged it in the way that I walk my clients through it, which is when you are processing, the first step is to feel what you're feeling. So that is a somatic experience, right? To feel what you're feeling. And I actually think that the reason we end up dwelling on experiences longer than we should or need to is because we don't actually feel the feelings. Feeling the feelings is a really kind of wibbly wobbly ball of stuff. It's like really hard to actually put our finger on what that means unless you have experiences where someone has walked you through how to connect with your body. So, and this is where I think there's a lot of disconnect for people is because we live in a very heady culture. We live in a culture where a lot of the time we're taught to be intellectual. The brain is valued more than the body a lot. We're on our phones. We're dealing with technology all day. We're just very in our heads. We're not necessarily in our bodies. We're really disconnected from our bodies in our culture, I believe. And so my path has led me down a lot of body-based experiences. I have a degree in theater, so I have a degree where I spent a lot of time really thinking about my body, thinking about the location of my body in space, how to move my body, how to hold myself, what feelings are, how to express feelings, a lot of different methods of using the body. When I graduated from university, I got my yoga teacher training certificate, and I pursued fitness teachings and health coaching and a lot of other body-based things where I was taught about the breath. I was taught about connecting to your feelings, the sensations that were arising in the body. And so I've had a history of really going almost like against everything that I had originally been taught about being in my head and connecting to my body instead. And I'll be honest, I forgot that that is not the norm. I forgot that that is not the normal experience for a lot of people. And when we say feel your feelings, a lot of people don't actually know what that means. And so I want to talk about what it means because I haven't. I realize I haven't actually done this. So feeling your feelings, and really the first step of processing is feeling your feelings. So feeling your feelings is when you try and empty out your head as much as possible. You allow your brain to empty and you feel the physical sensations that are coming up in your body without labeling it with the mind and labeling it as certain things. So if you've ever had an upset stomach, you felt discomfort in your stomach. If you've ever felt tightness in your chest, that is the tightness in your chest. If you've ever felt butterflies, that is a feeling, that is a sensation. If you feel like your skin is hot, that's a sensation. If you feel like your skin is cold, that's a sensation. If you feel tingles on your skin, that's a sensation. If you feel tightness or aches or muscle pain, those are sensations. So you're looking for the sensations in the body, and feelings, emotions are sensations in the body. So you have to allow yourself a moment to get out of your head and just sense the sensations that are coming up in your body. So in the art of feeling what you're feeling, what are the sensations that are present in your body? What can you feel in your body? Where is this feeling? Where is this sensation? How is this sensation spread out or concentrated? Is the sensation changing with every breath or as time passes? But really honing into the sensations in your body. Not the brain, oh, I'm sad because I'm feeling this. No, don't let your brain jump there. Not yet. I think that it's important to be able to verbalize our emotions, but that's not the entry point I want you to go into right now. That's important when you're trying to communicate with someone else. And it's important to have that awareness. However, we jump to labeling things so quickly. We jump to, I'm mad about this. I'm mad because this, and this. And it's like, okay, can we take out the this, and this and be mad? And then can we take out the mad and just feel the sensations? Because sometimes our brain will jump to a definition that is more accessible rather than actually true in how we feel. It's the easier emotion to label, so we label it as opposed to actually feeling what we're feeling. So how can you just be with sensations? That is the first step. And I think that's where the somatic processing comes in. The experiencing comes in. Experience your emotions. And it's the first step of processing, like actually processing a situation. The second step is being able to then express your feelings and to express what's coming up for you. Now, I think this can be the verbal processing piece. I think this could be in conversation, but it doesn't have to be. It can be physical. It could be dancing. It could be running. It could be art. It could be singing. It could be vocalization. There's a lot of ways to express your feelings, express what's coming up for you. And that's part of the processing. So when I say I'm an external processor, that's part of me talking with other people, talking about it. But not all people are. There's a lot of people who are internal processors who do want to sit and think about things for a while. But do that after you actually feel. It's part of the process, but it's the second part of the process. Then we get into deciding what experience you want to have and deciding what steps you have to take to make that happen, what structure you need for that to become available to you. This is where I think we are doing in the original definition of processing, it's the where do you want to go? What do you want your experience to be? What do you want your end place to be? Your end living space to be? That was another thing, by the way, that I found to be very interesting about the word dwelling and ruminating. I looked up those definitions as well. And when I looked up dwelling, the pretty much only definition that immediately came up was a house, apartment, or other place of residence. And I thought, oh wow, that is so interesting. I dug a little deeper into a few definitions, and the next thing was, it's somewhere you live. It took me a while to get into any kind of explanations. And when I say a while, I mean a few clicks, right? Like I don't mean like hours, but like it took me a few clicks to get into any kind of dwelling that wasn't talking about living somewhere. And that really made me think that when you are dwelling on something in the past, you are living there. You are living in that experience. You are living in that pain. You are living in that hurt. And if you want to live somewhere else, you have to decide where that is. You know, if you don't want to live in your apartment anymore, you got to look for a new apartment. If you don't want an apartment, you want a house, you got to look for a house. You got to figure out the steps you need to take to make that house happen. And the same is true for moving on. You have to decide where you want to go, what experience you want to have, and the steps to get there. When I think of the steps to get somewhere emotionally or in terms of a process of moving forward, I ask the question, who do you need to think? Or who do you need to think? What do you need to think? What emotions do you want to practice feeling? And who is the person you need to become in order to get there? What do you need to think? Who do you need to be? And what emotions do you need to practice in order to get there? After you decide where you want to go, you have to be mindful of your thoughts. You have to shift your stories. You have to be very, very, very aware of the story you're telling yourself, what you're making certain things mean, where you are allowing yourself to live. Because it's easy to want to go back to the past and bring up a time when someone hurt you, or to blame someone else, or to stay stuck there, or to say, I can never have this, this, and this because this happened in the past. I can never trust people again because I've gotten hurt before. I can never date again because all people are assholes because I've got my heart broken. And these are the instances I have to prove it. You have to decide that you don't want to live there. You have to decide that you want to live somewhere else. And then you have to tell yourself what you need to hear in order to create that new reality. So much of what we are able to create in our lifetime is based off of what beliefs we have, based off of what we are thinking, and how that is impacting how we are feeling, and how our feelings are impacting what we are doing. All of that goes into what results we have in our life. It's the model. If you're a client of mine, you know that I've used that model a few times to explain how to get what you want. The model was originated by Brooke Castillo. If you want to go and look it up, it's available. You can start applying this to your life today. But you have to be really careful of what you are making everything mean based off of something that happened in your past. You have to be willing to let it go. And that can be really hard. That doesn't mean you have to completely let someone back into your life. That doesn't mean that what they did was okay. But you have to be willing to go, that wasn't okay, and I'm not going to live in that feeling anymore. I'm not going to live in that story anymore. I'm going to choose a different story, and I'm going to choose a different experience for myself. There's been a few times in my past where I thought moving on was like forgiving and forgetting everything that happened. And it's like, no, it's actually not. Because sometimes people do things that make it unaligned for you to have a relationship with them. And it doesn't even have to be like this big dramatic thing. It's just like sometimes two people aren't meant to walk together very long. Sometimes someone doesn't need to be in your life, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you haven't moved on. It just means that you structured your life so that you don't have a relationship with them. The difference for me is like when you're still living in the pain of that experience, or when you're making it mean all these kinds of things. It's okay to not want to be in a relationship with someone. It's okay for something to have not been okay, and you also still don't have to live there. It's a very nuanced thing, but it's very, very real in my opinion. And then you got to repeat the process. The final step is to repeat the process, because I'll tell you, sometimes you get to 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old, and something comes back up from your childhood and you got to process it. You got to process it again because you shoved it down for years and years and years. Moving on, to me, is a practice, is a lot of practice. And I do think there are things that we completely move on for. Like, I remember relationships in the past where I've had really hurtful things said or done, and I don't have any like feelings come up anymore, and I was able to do the forgive and forget. But it's okay for it to not be that. It's okay for it to be a practice, and for things to come up later on and you just process it again. But the difference is actually processing it, actually feeling the feelings, and then expressing, and then deciding where you want to go, and then managing your mind and figuring out what story you want to tell yourself and how you can think, feel, and be to get to where you want to be. Dwelling, ruminating, when you can tell you're doing that is when you're not getting anywhere. That is the simplest answer I have. It's when you're not getting anywhere. It's when you're talking about something and talking about something and talking about something, but you're not getting any new information. You're not feeling any better. You're not working through your emotions. Nothing new is coming from it. And you're not getting to where you want to be. Or you are getting to where you want to be and it's exactly where you are. And it's being mad about something. Which, honestly, that's something that's really good to be real with yourself about. It's great to be real with yourself and just be like, you know what, I actually just want to be mad about this. I just want to be mad about this. I just want to be pissed about this. I want to be pissed about this for a while. I don't actually want to work through this. I just want to feel this way. Because then at least you're honest with yourself. You're not trying to, create a different kind of tension in your body. But it also, I think, there's trade-offs to it. That's what I'm trying to say. There's trade-offs to doing that, which is, I do think ultimately if you're just being mad for the sake of being mad for too long, then you're going to miss out on a lot of beautiful experiences that this life has, and it doesn't feel very good, and you're not going to feel very good, and we're only here for how long, and you might as well feel as good as you can. But at least you're being honest with yourself. But really, for me, dwelling and ruminating comes when you're not getting anywhere, you're not getting any new information, and you're staying stuck in the pain, you're staying stuck in the story. All right, my friends, I hope that was helpful for you today. And if you are feeling yourself dwelling and ruminating on an experience, I just want you to know that I am here to answer any of your questions. So if you have questions or if you are struggling right now, feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out to me on any of my socials, or you can send me an email at price.m.lucy@gmail.com. And I'm more than happy to support you as much as I can and to guide you to resources to support yourself. But don't stay stuck in the past. It's not a fun place to live. There's so many beautiful experiences and opportunities that life has for you, and you deserve to experience and have those opportunities, have those joyful, loving experiences. So definitely process the hurt, process what's coming up for you, process things. But don't stay stuck there. Don't dwell, because you deserve to dwell in a much more beautiful place than pain of the past. All right, y'all. I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If something resonated with you in today's episode, if you could leave a review, I would greatly appreciate it. It helps other people learn what we're all about here at Shift Your Story, and it helps this podcast reach listeners who may need to hear what it is that we have to say.
If you would like to connect with me or work with me, you can visit my website at www.shiftyourstory.net. You can also find all of my socials on there so you can connect with me in the way that works best for you. I'll see you next time.